I wanted to play Super Mario Bros. Wonder, but there was a problem. My left Joy-Con just straight up broke. Okay, maybe I dropped it, but it was still not the worst of falls, and it permanently damaged the ZL button. So, it was convenient timing when QRD Game reached out to me about trying out their controller. Before we talk about my thoughts on Mario Wonder and the future of 2D Mario, I'm going to give you all a look at the controller and how I feel about it. So let's take a look at QRD's T5 Stellar Nintendo Switch controller. The design of this controller itself feels really nice. It feels like an actual improved model of the regular Pro controller when holding it. The controller is bigger, but not too big, making this a perfect size for me. The controller has the same layout of any regular Switch controller, so the transition from Pro controller to Stellar isn't very noticeable. Visually, the controller does look very nice, obviously. I appreciate the little technical art design, and it's really clean with just the simple QRD text besides that. You're even able to change the surrounding colors of the joystick with 8 different kinds of LED lights, which is really cool if you have LED lights in your room to match with it, or if you just play in the dark, or just want to look cool. If the colors are too bright, you could just decrease it. There's 4 different modes of brightness, which is a novel but really cool feature. Something that's really appreciated is how the controller themselves are longer compared to the actual existing Joy-Cons, which were really small. This was one of my major gripes with regular Joy-Cons. Thankfully, the Stellar T5 is much bigger, as I mentioned. It fits my hands perfectly, allowing me to move my hands a lot easier and freely. The Stellar contains all your standard buttons, but also 2 programmable buttons on the back that are incredibly simple to reach and are really useful in certain games. You can simply program these buttons by pressing the M button, and then the button you want to assign it to. I highly recommend this because of complex games like Tears of the Kingdom, but it even works well in simple games like Mario Wonder for convenience. The Stellar even has a turbo function, which while some may say is cheating, I say is just an outlandish strategy. The Stellar thankfully has vibration, and even different levels of vibration, which is a rarity from what I've seen from a third-party controller. The amount of detail and features here is insane. The next thing is a big one. The Stellar joystick uses magnetic tech, which in simple terms completely removes drift, making this controller so much more incredible. You can use this thing for years and never have that thought in your head that you could randomly get drift and have to spend money on another set of controllers. Another major plus for me is that the controller works perfectly fine with a PC, which is great for me as my current controller for my PC isn't the best, and now I can just use one controller for everything. The controller even works on iOS and Android, which I wouldn't use personally since I don't play games on my phone, but there's definitely a group of people that really benefit from this. You can detach the Joy-Cons and put them on your actual Switch, which I feel like I wouldn't need to say, but I've seen so many third-party controllers not include this and completely miss the potential of how important this really is, especially for people like me that play handheld a lot. The actual button for pulling the controller out of the grip is a bit too small for my liking, but it smoothly comes in and out. Finally, there's the gyro controls, which work really well for my testing on Splatoon 3. Even as someone who doesn't use gyro as much, I really appreciate how the Stellar literally has everything. So many third-party controllers don't have 3/4 of these features. These are all things I'd expect from an officially licensed Nintendo controller, but here we are. When we get to the actual feel of the controller itself when you press the literal buttons, the feeling for each button is a bit all over the place. I think for me personally, the ZL and ZR buttons feel a bit off compared to the other buttons, but other than that, everything else feels really nice to press. The joystick is incredibly smooth, and whatever that Hall effect magnetic thing is, it feels really great, and even better than traditional controllers I've used. One of the best handled things is definitely the feel of the D-pad. Usually I don't even touch the D-pad, but now I'm really thinking of replaying some games and utilizing it because it feels really nice to use compared to the boring replacement for it on Switch. Since the controller is wireless, another great feature, you will need to charge it, and it is disappointing that you will need to charge both controllers separately, but here's a very simple solution to that. Get your Switch charger, connect your controllers to the Switch, charge your Switch, and then boom, you can charge both controllers at once and you can still play. You're probably wondering by this point, what's the price of this controller? It's only around 60 USD, which is $10 cheaper than any regular Switch Pro controller. While obviously it is more expensive than usual third-party controllers, the amount of features make it really worth it. If you're watching this video before November 28th, there's still the QRD Games Black Friday sale going on, where everything is 20% off, so you'd be able to get the Stellar T5 for $48, which is a really good deal for what this controller has packed into it. My only con about this controller is just the feel of the ZL and ZR buttons, which throws off the feel for the rest of the buttons to me. And I feel like even the ZL and ZR buttons feel slightly different, which is a big no for me. I will say, make sure to read the instructions as it can be confusing on how to operate some features like changing the colors on the joysticks. Overall, the QRD Stellar T5 is not a controller that should be compared to other third-party controllers, as that would be insulting. This is a controller that has the quality of an officially licensed Nintendo controller. I look forward to what other controllers and other products QRD Game makes next, as they're really pushing the limit in the third-party controller scene. Now let's talk about the future of 2D Mario. Super Mario Bros. Wonder was an amazing Mario game. Maybe I'll make a full actual review on it one day, but for now I'm more intrigued by what can happen next. First though, we need to identify what Wonder changed to the 2D Mario formula. First, obviously, it proved 2D Mario and Maker can coexist, so we already know that they're going to need to keep making more and more innovations to 2D Mario, so Maker doesn't feel like it's fully replacing it. We know that in terms of any game, the former title should be innovative and overall doing its own thing. But then again, just a decade ago, the 4 new Super Mario Bros. Games were all almost identical, no offense. Now, let's take a look at what Wonder actually did. We were introduced to several more playable characters, non-standard levels in the form of like break levels or bite-sized ones, in general more levels and innovations in every single level, complete visual overhaul, and a much more open map. I could go on. Wonder shaped up a lot of the 2D Mario format, which I'm very happy about and we needed. But now, they're gonna have to outdo the game that was made to outdo 2D Mario. So, what does the next 2D Mario need to do? Innovate even more. A lot of mechanics in Wonder are gonna be really hard to replicate in the next game if it's not just a direct sequel to Wonder, which I'm going into the impression it won't be. For example, the talking flower. This little guy is amazing. Despite everyone being hesitant at first, the majority of fans loved him when the game launched. But would they really just copy and paste him over to the next game? Would they just change the design? Or would they just have to go back to the drawing board on how to handle them? Since we were told this is a new era of 2D Mario, I find it unlikely that they'll reuse everything for a sequel unlike New Super Mario Bros. Obviously, they're more than likely going to keep the open map design and such, but the talking flower is a Mario Wonder staple. It's like having the Lumas in Mario Odyssey. It wouldn't quite fit. Nintendo's gonna have to strike a balance between reusing and innovating, which while they've done it time and time again, it's going to be incredibly hard this time with a game like Wonder because of how massively it one-upped the new Super Mario Bros. Games. It's going to be difficult to top the game that was made to top the previous games. How are they going to have something like Wonder Flowers again if they don't just do a reskin of it or something? Unique gimmicks in every level were one of the best features of Wonder, and while they could do it again in future 2D Mario games, it'll take time to do it in a seamless way like Wonder did. One idea is that the levels just naturally have these wacky events occur, no need for a Wonder Flower. In a snowy area, an avalanche happens. As simple as that. But then how would they handle things like the Wonder Seeds? Would they just be slightly more difficult 10 purple coins? Or would they need to be completely revamped? Or just ditch the concept of them entirely? A lot of solutions also could bring up other questions. I think the next 2D Mario taking place in the Mushroom Kingdom with much more natural events in every level I mentioned, with some kind of replacement for talking flowers without making them seem like a carbon copy will be the likely outcome. But would that be enough? We'll just have to see. This whole concept of one-upping the last game has been insane for a lot of Nintendo IPs recently, and I want to talk about that as it's going to be something that we're going to see very visible within the next Nintendo system. The no doubt biggest offender is Zelda with Tears of the Kingdom, the game that managed to arguably one-up Breath of the Wild in almost every single way. It's considered one of the best Zelda games ever, and the complex mechanics and massive world form such a daunting question of, how are we going to be able to one-up this? Some franchises obviously have more leeway than others for one-upping, like Kirby with Kirby in the Forgotten Land. It was an incredible 3D platformer, and Kirby's first. But since it's only the first and there's so much room for completely new mechanics and such, it's primarily series like Mario and Zelda that have been pushing the limits to the max now with every single new game. But this is going to become the case soon with a lot of Nintendo IPs in the future. It's going to be really tricky to handle this and be able to keep going and innovating and one-upping every single previous game in its own unique way. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see really. But what do you think? Am I going crazy and they'll easily be able to top Wonder in other games in completely unique and innovative ways? Or do you agree, and are you also concerned for the well-being of designers at Nintendo and how they'll be able to outdo Wonder? Let's talk about it in the comments. Thanks for watching till the end.